Now, one thing that's changed in the music industry is you're all focused on children, right? What happened to the male acts of the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? Uh huh. Yeah, yeah. That's what I mean. Like, Crosby, Stills, the Dash, and right, Neil Young, and right. See, that should be my generation, right? Right. Y'all just eliminate us, right? Or are we competition? Because, if you start out at a boy band, what you gonna do when you get older, right? That little pop ditty, kind of weird for you to be singing it to a teenage girl when you're in your 50s. Uh-huh. Now, what I'm talking about are the ballads, right? The love songs, Dr. Hook and, right? Whatever happened to that, Hollywood? Right. I know. Don't think I can do that either, right? I know. I'm not in love just because. Yeah. I mean, songs like that. I don't know. Just to see the thing I'm going through. Or again, Pina Colada song, even, right? Or Jimmy Buffett type songs, right? Now, you had also James Taylor, right? And right, Frank Sinatra was kind of doing a little something back then, right? And he was well into his 40s and 50s as well when he started his career, right? But yet you're acting weird about me. I know. Singing songs I grew up listening to, and yet, attacking me like I even know you. And the first thing someone who's doing something wrong is going to act like you're doing is something worse than them, right? Now, you generally use two things. The person is either gay or they're a pedophile. Yeah. Yeah. That's messed up. I could say effed up. Because it is. Because it is. And you people in the music industry are just going batshit, right? And we don't know why. We don't know why. But you damn sure are doing away with the older rock stars, right? And you're not letting this generation, right, do the same things the 70s and 80s generation did. Because most of the people singing during that time were in their 40s or 30s or even 50s, even, right? Some of them, right? Engelbert Humperdinck, have you ever heard of him, right? I think he sung the song, "Hey, won't you play another somebody done somebody wrong song?" Well, like I said, right? Whatever. And why is it just not selling? That's the point, too. Is that the problem? Right? Only the kids' music is selling? I don't know. And that would be, why? The teenagers are begging their parents to buy it? Yeah, I know what you mean. Exactly. Because, of course, the young girls can go after the, popular, boy bands, right? But they can't go after the older, mature male. Because for him, that's pedophilia, huh? Right. And like I said, like I'm trying to target anyone who's not an adult in my humor as well and explaining the Gnostic Gospel to you and why it fits. If you read it with the Bible, idiot. If you read it like it's something different, just like with the Bible, you're not going to understand it because you're not reading all the Bible either, right? That's another problem, right? They're showing you things they hope would make sense to you in it, about not sinning, about not doing each other wrong, about forgiving each other, about condemnation and all that too. And yet it don't really help you to understand it all, no. Either. For instance, the common perception of what we did in Eden was to bite this apple, like, Snow White and the poison apple. Right. We lived 930 years after, right? And then dropped dead of a heart attack, I guess. I know. On the seventh day, because the Lord was resting, he made the planet in 6 days. Right. Yeah, oddly, we lived 930 years after we ate, and he said, the day you eat thereof, you'll surely die. Well, unless that day was longer than 24 hours, something don't add up there. Yes. Right? Or was based on a different timetable. Where 1,000 years is the equivalent of a day, wherever that may be in the universe, right? Or something, right, though. It takes it at least, 1,000 years, right? Maybe longer, I don't know, right? To mark a day for itself, right? Whereas for the Earth, let's say it's 24 hours. But did you know, like I said, a solar day is 30 days of the Earth, right? It takes the sun, though you can't tell, to rotate on its own axis, because it too is a ball. And this might be something you don't think about, right? Because you don't know, right? It's not common knowledge, right? You have to be a scientist or at least an astronomer, right? To know some of this, right? And even the planets further out, it might take them longer to rotate. Though the planets farther in, like Venus and Mercury, it might be harder to tell what a day even is to them, right? Because the closer you are to the sun, right? How can you really rotate with the sun frying your butt? And that's the whole point, right? The concept of a day, though, Moses is talking about, has to be longer than 24-hour period, right? And yet, both are a true day within that day, right? You understand, too, right? If I have 24 hours, right, and yet I live 930 years, right, it obviously wasn't talking about a 24-hour Earth day, right? When it told me that, right? So it must have been something from its perspective versus mine, right? Where a day in its equivalent was as 1,000 years, right? But it still means it takes 1,000 years in the Earth's time period for that to be a day to that still being that told me that, right? See, someone's telling me this, right? While I'm interacting with the animals in the garden too, and the trees and the vegetables and whatever else is there, right? But did you know there's 25 different fruit trees on the whole planet, right? Of different varieties, right? That if they were all in Eden, alright, and they're also still here, how do we know we're not currently eating of the tree of knowledge and good and evil and just don't even know if it's a fruit tree, right? by the way. Unless it's a metaphor, right? See, if it's a metaphor, and God is telling him this tree in this garden, and wants to bring forth fruit through your bodies, right? And don't do it with it. Don't do it with it. Because with that tree, it will teach you the knowledge of good and evil, right? If you do this one act with it. Of the two things you can do with it, right? It will teach you the knowledge of good and evil, right? And you will become like it to know good and evil, right? Which is in the same book, right? The same passage, just further down. When he's again addressing the man first, right? he tells him, you became as one of us, right? Who's the one of us? The sons of God mentioned in Genesis chapter, what? 6, right? And Job, right? Talks of that, right? There are sons of God who went into the presence of the Lord on his throne, right? Who's the Lord on his throne? Jesus is. Oh, wait a minute now. You're trying to separate Jesus from Jesus in the Old and New, right? No, it's the same God. The problem is Satan is so entrapping us, if you will, right? Or tricking us into sitting with him. He's more represented in the Old Testament, and Jesus brings it all out in the New, right? What the real problem was, unforgiveness, condemnation, right? Judging each other as, the law makes you judge each other, right? Now, breaking the law, if you condemn that law, has with it a punishment up to death, right? Right. Sometimes you were just quarantined, right? Sometimes you were completely exiled, right? For different types of things or sins you did, right? Sometimes they would make a woman drink sand or dust with water from the tabernacle at the time, or in Solomon's time or Herod's time, you would say the temple, right? And she would have to do that to prove she was being faithful to her husband and was cursed, right? If again, right, her belly was to do this, that, and the other, if she cheated, right? If she didn't cheat, right, she was fine, right? And that too, though, I guess, could explain why David's child, the only one to die that he had with all the women he was with, by the way, oddly. See, you're not hearing the whole story of David, right? One child out of all the children he had died. And this is because of Uriah being the father, or did I say that? Yes, I did. Possibly being the father of the child, right? It also explains why David, while trying to figure out what was going on here, right, himself, put Uriah in the thickest part of the battle, so that, like, he had to do with Saul a couple times, right, to see if he could find a way out. Right. You might think that's something cowardly of David to do, right? Right. But if you are, you're not understanding what's going on here, right? You heard of treason, right? Well, what is treason for a monarchy, right? Is where you're married to this one woman, right? And you're the king, right? And she's really pregnant by another man, right? But the thing is, both David and Bathsheba knew she was married, right? When they hooked up, right? Uriah knew she was his wife, right? When he was sent for by David, and then again was sent back into the battlefield, right? Now, you might say, well, why was David at home when he should have been in the battlefield? Well, whatever reason, as a king gets older, right, it's just wiser, like Jesus said, if you're feeling your age, which could also be a middle age crisis, who knows, right? As well. To put it in modern terms, he was maybe feeling his age. Maybe he was feeling the aches in his bones of all the battles he fought to get to that point. And maybe this one time he wanted his men, right? Like a normal king, to fight that battle. without him. Yeah. I mean, right. It don't mean anything good or bad. It's just that particular time he decided to stay in his palace, nice and warm, while the men went to the battle. Can you blame him, right? If other kings at certain times in their lives, right, do the same thing. No. He's just exercising his right as a king to either go into battle or not, right? Now, Josiah had to learn the hard way. Because he was told by Huldah the prophetess, his eyes would not even see a battlefield. Right? And he would go to his grave in peace. Right? But when Pharaoh Necho or whatever, was fighting an Assyrian or someone around that area, and he wanted to join in with Pharaoh Necho, he was told by Pharaoh, this don't concern you. Stay out of it. But he didn't listen, right? No. And as he was heading towards the battlefield to fulfill Huldah's word, he got shot by an stray arrow, right? And died before his feet or eyes could see the battlefield. Wow. How can that even happen? Because again, right, he didn't listen to Huldah and tried to do something against the Lord's will and tried to go to a battle that had nothing to do with him, right? And before he even reached the battlefield, right, an arrow killed him, shot wildly, right, to make sure that he did not see a battlefield before he died, right? You might say, well, ain't that a little bit crazy? Yeah. He wasn't listening. He was told that by a prophetess. Now, some men have a problem with women being in authority, especially from the Old Testament. But there's two women, though, not one, in about the 2 or 3 instances that ever will be established, that had leadership roles in the Bible. Dumbass, fake Christian, male-oriented doomsdayers, or destroying the Word of God with your false misinterpretation of the Apostle Paul. Right. And not reading the whole Bible again for yourself. You ever heard of a woman named Deborah? Well, she wanted Barak, who was a captain, right, to go into battle against another guy, who was the captain of the host of Syria and their chariots, right? And Barak kind of was acting like most typical male chauvinist pigs, right? Let's call a pig male, Jew or Gentile. Okay, he was so stubborn, though, that whole Deborah said, the glory will not be for you, but he shall be delivered into the hands of a woman. And Yael was that woman. El is not a man, though, mean. Yael, no. Do you hear her name?